everyone. We welcome you to the WKYC High School Football Game of the Week preview show alongside Tyler Carey. I'm Dave Dino. We will be halfway home in 2021 after our game Friday night. It always flies. I tell people that all the time, TC. Week 5, we're going to be back in a place that we've already been this year. In terms of stadium, not of teams, getting a look at a team we've not covered before and a team that we covered a few years back in the playoffs. I'm excited about this one as we make the official announcement.
Yes, Dino, we are headed back to Parma, where hopefully there will once again be a moon in the sky over historic Byers Field. But we are headed there because Valley Forge is going to be hosting Buckeye in the Week 5 WKYC.com game of the week. It was up against a couple of tough competitors at Eastlake North, Willoughby South, always a very heated rivalry matchup.
As good as any.
Absolutely. VASJ, who we've never had in the poll before, taking on Cleveland Central Catholic. But in the end, this one was a decently decisive winner, but a little over 50% of the vote. And I think that the people of the Parma City School District and all the way down to Medina County, those Buckeye Bucks are going to be very excited for this one.
Yeah, so, I mean, these are two teams that are perennial playoff contenders. I look at Valley Forge. I mean, they had one of the best games of the year, I think, so far in Northeast Ohio in that come-from-behind win over Rocky River at their place. And we've wanted to cover Valley Forge because, again, they've been – this is not anything new for them to be off to a nice start. They've perennially been a good team.
You know, Dino, it wasn't that long ago when I was in school. They were Twinsburg's rivals in the old Northeast Ohio Conference. Rest in peace. And Valley Forge back then, we kind of looked at them as an also-ran. Like they were just that guaranteed win, like, all right, we're just going to go right in there and roll over them. That's changed over the last few years. They've really become a very competitive team in Region 6. This year, it's because of their running back, Kentrell Marks, arguably the best running back in Northeast Ohio. He's headed to Purdue. He's kind of led that very steady offense. And not only are they 2-1, they were going to play Bay last week. That got canceled for reasons that we certainly...
Non-COVID health issues,
yeah,
I guess is the best way to
let's go with that. But I think that would have been a close game.
Me too.
You mentioned they beat Rocky River by a point. They lost to North Ridgeville, another good team, by a point. So you feel like whenever Valley Forge steps on the field, anything can happen, and you're going to see a pretty good game.
And Buckeye, you know, this goes back to my time when I was covering high school football in Lorain County. We always knew, you know, teams like Wellington, when they were at their peak, you always had to go through Buckeye if you wanted to advance in the postseason. I mean, Buckeye and Black River always had a great rivalry. And so, I mean, I've always known about the Buckeye. They're just good, hard-nosed, tough football for a little school. They've become more now than a little school as they've moved up in terms of division class, but the success has still followed them no matter what division they're in.
No question. And it seems, Dino, that even though they may not always be on the level in Division III of like Aurora, Chardon, and those teams, they're always there. They're right there just kind of lurking. And those teams know that they can't overlook them because they're talented. They have that history of success, and they're always liable to win a game against any team they face. Now, they did lose last week against a good North Olmsted team. It was their first loss of the year. Ben Barnes, their running back / linebacker / kicker, had a pretty good game for him. But again, 3-1, it just seems like it's par for the course for this Buckeye Bucks team. Yeah,
they're off to where they normally are, and I think Forge is off to where they normally are. Two good teams. This is one for, you know, that Region 10 playoff positioning. This could be a big one, folks, on Friday night. So we'll look forward to having that matchup, and I'm excited to go back to Byers Field. It's always a pleasure to go out there and cover a game. As we get into Tyler's top 5, I'm going to let you do the top 5 because it involved two teams that we covered last week, and I figured we can talk about the game. I mean, Medina Stowe was everything I think we wanted it to be, and more. And I figured, you know, the Battling Bees did not hurt their status by that victory.
No, absolutely not. And if we're starting with that game, I'll just say right now, Stowe, even though I still think they're a very good team, is out of the rankings. It kind of had
rightfully
to put them out.
so. Yeah.
And with so many other good teams around them, I kind of had to drop them a little bit. Doesn't mean they can't get back in there, but for now they're out. As far as the game goes, I mentioned how it was going to be a game that we were going to be talking about for a long time. It wasn't quite the instant classic that we thought it would be, where, it's down to the very last drive, last team with the ball is going to win the game, because Medina kind of pulled away at the end, and we'll get into that. But we're still going to remember it because of how good this Medina team is. Let's go into the numbers here. Drew Aller, we talk about him ad nauseum on this show, but we're going to do it again. 523 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. That yardage is a Medina County record, by the way.
He already holds more than 2, but just off the top of my head now, 2 Medina County records: most passing yards in a game, most touchdown passes for a career.
62 TD passes, and he's still got at least 6 more games left in his senior year. It's probably going to be a lot more than that.
Yeah. He's going to own most of the county's passing records by the time he's done. With one blemish on one bad throw, and I thought about Drew Aller's interception because Baker Mayfield made a very similar interception on Sunday at the end of the Browns game. It happens. Except for that blemish, he was spot on. And as we talked about during the game, the thing that I walked away from, though, as impressive as Aller was and all the numbers, Medina's defense really adjusted well to Stowe's running game in the second half. And once they put the clamps on the Bulldogs, Stowe just could not keep up.
No, and I feel kind of bad because we had kind of talked about, this is the Drew Aller show, and it is. Look, he comes out of the lineup. They're not a state title contender.
Right.
But I think they proved that they are more than just Drew Aller. You look at the receivers. Juwan Jackson, 5 catches, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns.
I thought he went over 200,
That's 47 yards per reception, by the way, kids. Brennan Schramm, 13 catches, 188 yards, 2 TDs. But then you go on defense. We'll look at the Stowe stats. We talked about how good Owen Bainbridge is. Going to Bowling Green, great quarterback. 10 of 26, 68 yards.
Yeah. He was not a factor running the football either.
Xavier Preston, too. 189 yards rushing, only 44 of those came in the second half after he kind of went off in the second quarter, which really got Stowe back into that game, gave them the lead at halftime. And the defense, Juwan Jackson actually on that defense, kind of helps guarding that secondary. They really, really stepped it up. I was amazed at the way they were able to shut down this very deep Bulldog roster. And like you said, they were a non-factor. They had 1 garbage time touchdown that had no impact on the final score.
Yeah, that was impressive. I took that away from that game as much as anything else. Who's in the top 5 this week here,
Well,
TC?
there are some changes. As I mentioned, Stowe is out. Doesn't mean they're bad, but they are out. So I had to pick number 5. And again, you could have picked a bevy of good teams. But I went with a team we actually saw in week 1, and that's Benedictine.
Yes.
Now, since that double overtime win over Walsh Jesuit, who's had a couple of heartbreakers on their schedule, but it was a game that Benedictine probably should have lost. They came back and won by a point in double overtime. Since then, they've been blowing people out, like Bishop Hartley last week.
Yeah.
They just blew them out of the water.
Blew out Cleveland Central Catholic a couple
Toledo
weeks ago.
Central Catholic, who we know is a very, very good team. And we saw how good they were, how they were able to make the adjustments on defense and come back to win that game. The offense just putting up points left and right. Benedictine they'd always been good, but they had kind of just been, lurking behind, the Hobans and the other schools of that class. It really seems like they're getting back to the level that they were in their glory days.
Yeah, I think we talked about it, I think, early in the season, that both Benedictine and Walsh Jesuit felt like the gap between they and Hoban had really closed, and I think Walsh's performance against Hoban would indicate that, much like the Browns and the Chiefs, so close but not quite there yet. We'll see when Benedictine gets their chance at Hoban, but yeah, I would agree. I think they're worthy of being a top 5. I think they are right now, along with another team that I think you're about to mention, the best in the area in Division II.
I would agree with that. Now, we're actually going to go to Division III
for number
4. Staying at number 4, they got leapfrogged by somebody. We'll get to them in a minute. But at number 4 is the Aurora Greenmen.
Yeah.
a decisive 42-13 win over Copley. They were up 35-0 at halftime. 273 yards on the ground, 3 TD passes for Alex Moore. Now, we have said that we think Aurora's got a really good chance to run the table.
Yes.
I still feel that way.
Yes.
However, looking at their schedule, there are some tough games that are starting to kind of lurk as the schedule shapes out. Talmadge.
Yes.
Barberton.
Yes. All of a sudden, that Barberton game looks a lot better.
And Highland, who right now is #1 in Division II, Region 6.
Highland, to me, all of a sudden, we saw them against, and I think it speaks to North Royalton and how they've elevated. I would agree. I think that Highland game is going to be, of those three you mentioned, the toughest. But Talmadge had a tough time against those same Highland Hornets over the last week. But yeah, Barberton, I think, indicative of the way they've played since losing to St. Vincent St. Mary, I think the Magics are going to be a tough team. So it's not going to be. I don't want anybody to take away from this that we think Aurora is just going to sail to a 10-0 record. I think it's out there for them. But as you point out, there are going to be a couple of hurdles for them to overcome, where they're not going to be able to go 35-0 against an opponent.
No, and for the record, I did think about putting Highland in this top 5. It was so close, and look, anyone could do that. I decided to go with Benedictine. I thought the schedule a little bit stronger.
I would agree with that.
But you know what? You want to make the case for the Hornets, I will certainly listen to it. Okay, coming in at #3.
The other Division II team.
Yes, leapfrogging Aurora. After a big win last weekend, the Avon Lake Shoremen. Now, we talked about on this show how that had been their bugaboo, is beating the Eagles. They just could not get past their arch rival. Well, they did that last week, and the big reason, look, Jake DePaul, the backup quarterback, played again, had a very good game for Avon Lake. 5 Avon turnovers, 4 in the first half, 1 on the last drive of the game. They were down 30-10 after being up 10-0, came back, cut it to 6. They're driving to win the game, and they coughed the ball up at the 15-yard line. Again, hats off to Avon Lake, but especially talking to Adam Kenyon, I think the feeling among the Southerners is that they gave this game away.
Yeah, and you can't turn it over 5 times against anybody, but against an elite team like Avon Lake, Matt Kostelnik's team is disciplined and they'll make you pay. That's the thing. I look at Avon; they're a 2-2 team right now. The loss to Medina is one thing. We're about to talk about the Bees. But even in that game, they gave up. Juwan Jackson had a punt return for a touchdown that really kind of separated them, I think. And Medina kind of did the same thing to Avon that they did to Stowe, and just kind of in the second half, just kind of moved away from them. I think Avon's going to be a better. When we get to November, Mike Elder will have these mistakes shored up. I truly believe that. I truly believe that because of the expand. I mean, I think Avon probably, even if they go 8-2, I still think they're a playoff team. Even if it's only top 8,
I still think a very high seed. In that case.
But with the expansion, this is going to be a good team. For those in Avon who are a little concerned because you're 2-2 and you're not used to being 2-2, don't worry about it. Mike Elder will clean up the mistakes and get this team to where it needs to be by the time we talk playoffs. And
what do we always say? I would not be surprised.
Another
if these
matchup.
2 teams meet again down the road.
It almost always TC for that Region 6, either that semifinal or the final. Avon and Avon Lake almost always will meet. I mean, it's just the way it goes. Now, Highland's going to have something to say about that. I think because they're in Region 6. Highland will have something to say about that. Nora will have something to say about that. But, yeah, I would not rule out a second meeting between those 2 teams.
The regional championship always has to go along those railroad tracks.
Yep.
Separating
Route 83. Yep.
It's wonderful. All right, #2. You already mentioned it. Medina checking in at #2. I thought about putting them #1.
It was an impressive win. Listen, that was an impressive win. I think you would have been justified doing it. But, yeah, I think the other thing we talked about defense, but you and I both walked away from Friday night saying, Yeah, this isn't a fluke. This isn't something that just happened last year in the postseason when we talk about the Battling Bees and this emergence. I mean, this team's for real. I mean, they really are. You beat Avon, and I know they beat Warren Harding. They beat Avon. They beat Wadsworth, and then you beat Stowe. I mean, these are legitimate victories. I mean, this is a very, very good football team that, you know, if you're sitting down there in battling B country and you're dreaming of a state championship, it's not far-fetched. I'm telling you that right now.
And being in that conference, it's only going to stay tough because you're going to play Solon, you're going to play Brunswick, you're going to play Mentor. Next week, they're going to head to Strongsville to play a pretty tough Mustangs team. And you know that they can't just look ahead. I don't think they will.
No, I don't either.
We saw that against Wadsworth. Could they look ahead to Stowe? And they beat Wadsworth 35-0.
Yeah, no, I don't think they'll look ahead either. But it'll be tough. It'll test them. Every week they're going to get tested by this grind of a conference. And it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, because there's going to be a night when maybe Drew Aller isn't, as proficient as he was last Friday, and they've got to find another way to beat you. They've got to force a turnover. They've got to, get a special teams play. Well, their body of work this year shows you they can do that.
One more thing about Drew Aller before we move on. I asked you after that game when you got back here, because you've seen a lot of great quarterbacks over the years, and I asked you where Drew Aller ranked, and you compared him to a very, very elite quarterback in the history of this region, and that was, of course, Mentor's Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, I saw Mitch Trubisky his first game as a high school player. I called one of his last games as a high school quarterback. As good as I've ever seen play that position as a broadcaster. Drew Aller has those intangibles, leadership, ability to make plays, ability to bounce back from a mistake, great arm, great instincts, all of those intangibles that make you a Division I caliber quarterback. Drew's got it.
Certainly can't do much better in Greater Cleveland High School.
I don't think so.
Football lore. All right, number one, I think we all know who it is, and that is St. Edward. A ho-hum 48-14 win on the road at Elder down in Cincinnati last week. That was the only reason I didn't put me down at number one, because when you do that and you're St. Edward, it shows how good you're. Christian Ramos, 284 total yards, 5 total touchdowns, 4 on the ground. Oh, by the way, the Eagles got to go play at Massillon this Friday.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be a treat. Oh, that'll be fun. You know what? I mean, Tom Lombardo says, keep it coming. Keep the challenges coming. I got to make a 4-hour road trip to Cincinnati with my guys? Okay, fine. I got to go to Tiger Stadium? Okay, fine. But they wouldn't have it any other way. And the fact that you go to Elder and you're able to really dominate the game, not just win, but win decisively like that shows you a lot.
Look, as we know, like down the road in the playoffs, anything can happen. We saw it last year. We've seen it in years past. But this may be among one of the best St. Edward teams we've seen in a while. They're technically the last Northeast Ohio team to be named a national champion. That 2010 team won a couple of those, was number one in a couple of those rankings. I would not be shocked if they make noise in that category again. We've already seen them kind of up there in those national rankings, and this team looks so locked in. They're blowing everybody out. You're going to start seeing some comparisons to that 2010 squad.
Right. And I'm sure Coach Lombardo would say, hey, look, we don't worry about that. We got to worry about, we got to keep it in the moment. But that team looks very special right now. And, they'll keep it going. I know they got Ignatius coming up in a couple weeks, and that'll be a test. But they like tests. That's what they do in Eagle Country. So we're going to continue to follow their fortunes this year as they look very, very good. I remember being down there in 2018 when they won the title, and this team looks a lot like that team as well. So we'll wait and see. But for this week, we will be down at Byers Field once again, moon over Parma, to see the Valley Forge Patriots play host to the...
Guide her to East Lake. Oh, wait, we're not going to Lake County.
No, we're not going to
Sorry,
Lake County.
Guys.
Sorry, North versus South. But we'll be watching that game. Certainly, we'll be following that score amongst the other games Friday night. But Dennis Maniloff, I believe, is going to answer the bat signal and join me at Byers Field. Should be a lot of fun, folks. A good Division III matchup. The Buckeye Bucks and the Valley Forge Patriots will join you for the call at about 6:50 at WKYC.com. Also on the app, on YouTube, on Facebook Live. Great audio play-by-play combined with the video ambient shot during the game and Brian Crane's highlights later on that night. So we're going to have fun on Friday, halfway home in this 2021 season.
That doesn't seem real, Dino.
No.
It does not, especially after last year being such a blur. Why does this have to be getting through it so quickly? Come on, give me more.
Savor it, folks. Savor it. Okay, again, Buckeye Valley Forge Friday. We'll see you from Parma. Until then, for Tyler Carey, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks for watching the WKYC.com High School Football Game of the Week Preview Show.